So Becki, you've been with us for how long?
Coming up on 2 years. Next month will be 2 years.
2 long years. So were you were in the military, weren't you?
Yep, over 21 years.
21 years. So you're a retiree.
Yes.
Thank you for your service.
Appreciate it.
Number of different places in the world you've been, right?
Yes, a lot.
Like what? Can you give us an example of how many? Like Germany, what others?
Germany, Italy, Turkey, and then around the States, Nebraska, woohoo, Virginia. Here at Scott, started off here.
Oh wow,
Scott, yeah.
wow, yeah, lucky you.
I know, yay. Back here.
So what kind of specialty like were you in the military? Like what was your main duty, or maybe you had a couple, you know?
The main duty that I had was command and control. So a lot of people know that from command post, dealing with a lot of aerial port maintenance, getting packs, passengers cargo from A to B. And then transitioned to more of a nuclear emergency actions. Did a bunch of FEMA help with that, and then went over to fly for a little while, and that was probably the best time. And then ended off in Europe to end my career back in nuclear emergency actions. And then, did a lot of stuff in DC area.
Yeah, sure. So you've seen it, you've done it, you've been everywhere almost. That's amazing. What a great career, right?
I loved it.
So one of the things that I think UNCOMN does is we try to find uncommon geniuses, right? And sometimes people attribute that to these mad scientists, these folks that are like Dr. Frankenstein in a lab, right? And that's not necessarily where all the genius lives. And a big part of the genius for UNCOMN is folks like you, people that have had all of these experiences, especially supporting our country and our military. And so, as we do our work, it's incredibly important to have folks like you around that have seen a lot of things, right? And because you have those eyes and those experiences, eyes on things and experiences with everything, how has that helped you as you've come to work for UNCOMN and doing the work that you've done with architecture?
With architecture, I understand the why. So learning architecture here was completely new for me, which is one of the reasons why I liked UNCOMN, because they're taking a shot on me. Hey, I'm willing to learn anything, and then get started there. But I already can understand the why. I can see the end picture there. So as I'm working through an architecture, if folks have questions, I can kind of, this is the why. This is why, or the reason why people need to know when that passenger or when that cargo is supposed to get to, in this case, a deployed location. It's important because people are waiting for that person to get there. They're taking somebody else's spot, and that person's coming back to the States.
Sure.
So I'm able to kind of like bring that in for folks here. So it makes it a little more enjoyable because you kind of feel more pride in doing.
Sure.
Doing
You're the voice of the customer, right? You're the voice of the customer.
Yes.
And I think it's what I've noticed too is unfortunately I did not serve. I went a different path. My dad and my grandpa served in the Air Force and the Army previously, and but one thing I've really appreciated with all the veterans that we work with is you find this as a great opportunity to look back at those 20 years and go, what are all those things that frustrated me? What are all those changes and systems and processes? And, I know I can make those better, and but you weren't maybe in a position to make those better. But now here you are today, you're working with military leadership, you're working with the systems and the processes that you once had to do as a soldier. It's gotta feel good to be able to say, I know there's something here that needs to be fixed, and then you can relate to those folks on the ground and have a conversation with them. Is that a good part of what we do?
Yep, and an example that I remembered, I was on the team, and we were talking about, moving, military folks moving. And so as we're going through these processes, I just retired. I just moved from Germany trying to get family furniture, cars, and all that over here, and to look at these processes. And I was like, I remember I was the person logging in. I was the person, trying to make sure that my stuff got to where it needed, because that's stress. That's stress on the family, stress on me.
Right.
How do I get my family back here? And so being able to kind of ask questions during the SME meetings when we're talking to the customer, I can kind of pinpoint heartache that I had without
Yeah.
saying it,
Right.
and just kind of like, well, what about this? What about this? Or did we think about these decision points here? Because ultimately it could kind of relieve some stress for maybe another family that's moving.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you talked a little bit about we took a chance on you, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about this company is we love taking chances. We love finding, great people that maybe come from different walks of life or different experiences. And so you came to us with little to no architecture experience, right?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that journey to get to where you are today, because from what I'm hearing, you're one of our better architects on the on the side of the
I
area
paid people
of the. Oh, there you go.
I
Well,
paid them
you're
to
doing a
say
very
that.
good job of buying some support mechanisms. But talk a little bit about that training. That how did you? Because I'll tell you one thing for me, as a software developer, data guy in my background, I'd never had anybody hand me an architecture diagram. No one did. They just told me I need that button blue, and I'd just go make the button blue. And you know what? It turns out that had a problem and impact on all these other things. And so if I would have had architecture, if I would have been able to understand it when I was doing those things, it would have been awesome. And so here you are, you're coming in, you have all this functional background, you have all these experiences, and so you get to start learning how architecture works. How did that go? Like, what do we do to help get you to where you are today?
Well, I do want to say my day one here, I thought it was just going to come on board, and they're like, you're starting training today.
Oh, wow.
And then, any questions? I don't even know what I'm looking at right now, So,
Yeah.
But again, background, I've been a training manager and all these other things that I've done in my career. So I'm able to listen, digest, and then ask questions as things go along or soak it in. But I went through the training and it was very eye-opening. I can understand clearly what they were talking about. I may have not been 100% on it, but it made me excited because they were excited about it.
Sure.
And how it would impact. So I'm like, okay, well then I'm the right person for you. I can do this. And then getting out of training, I'm helping out with the classes here and there, because that's more training that gets me even better as I'm speaking to trainees. Then I'm actually getting more experience.
Sure.
And
Sharpening the sword.
Exactly. So, and then I started off with the training team, did that for a little bit, and then moved over to AFMC, but that's even more experience. So it
Right.
opens up even more models that I wasn't privy to before. So.
Sure. And one of the things I like about architecture is we call it a team sport,
Yes.
right?
It's
Not an individual sport.
No, it's not.
It's not golf. You actually have a team you're working with. You're around whiteboards. You're in rooms together. You have people looking over your shoulder. You're looking over their shoulder. Talk a little bit about that team dynamic. How do you keep it so you guys don't want to kill each other? How do you keep that morale up so you guys can get where you want to go?
Well, you got to grr for a moment and then you move on. That's what I always tell them. There's power in the grr. And then, but for a team, the different type of folks that UNCOMN hires, well, I'm going to hear what you have to say because of your background, your experience, even if it wasn't anywhere near mine.
Right.
You come with something and then I come with something, and we're all here, we're all listening to each other. So it's nothing to argue about because, hey, what little piece are you going to bring in for us to make an even better product?
Sure.
Because ultimately we're going for the same goal. We want that customer happy and we want them to want us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what it's all about, right? We're all trying to get to the same place,
Yes.
right? And we're trying to make, the processes, the systems, and really the experience for our warfighter better, right? And I think that's what ties us all together.
Yeah.
From the beginning of the company, we've always had that philosophy of finding people in that kind of mold. I don't think we had a label for it. And a couple of years ago, I think that label kind of arrived, which is diversity of thought, right? And so the ability to sit in a room with folks and hear all those different perspectives, understand though, at the end of the day, we're all trying to get to where we're going and accepting that, but working together and taking all the little different pieces and applying that to solving a problem,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, that's huge.
Perfect.
That's huge. So what other, UNCOMN has a lot of other things going on aside from just working all day long. Are there other organizations or anything like that within UNCOMN that you're participating in or anything like that?
So Women's in Business, we just had folks, I believe last week over here, Sisters in Service. So they asked me to come, and of course I'm like, yay, I'm coming. I mean, there was a free shirt too.
Well, there you go.
So he came out here, but it was nice to talk to female veterans or soon to be outside the service and to kind of give them our perspective on what we learned and what would have helped us along the way. So get them better prepared. It's a lot of information for anybody, but for us to kind of team up with the Sisters in Service and kind of just watch out for each other, because there's a lot more that, again, stress.
Yeah.
How can we alleviate that stress? While I'm here, I'll give you some information explaining what UNCOMN. We had Mandy Sater. She's coming up on 10 years, and I'm at 2. So we were able to kind of, she was to hone in on what she's been doing, and then me just recently retired. So a lot of folks kind of like that, like the different perspectives of 10 years being out to 2 years being out and what things they can learn. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. One of our newest folks that we added to the team recently, Brooke, and I were talking yesterday, is I actually have a high school daughter who's got several of her friends that are interested in joining the Air National Guard. And they have a lot of questions because, as you can imagine, as a 17 or 18-year-old female, that there's a lot of things that you have to think about if you're going to make that commitment, right? And so it's great for us here at UNCOMN. Brooke's going to meet with them and sit down and kind of explain her journey in the Army National Guard and just take them through some of the decisions she had to think about and some of the commitments that it is, because it's a big deal, right? You're signing up.
Big deal.
It's a very big commitment for somebody that young, but you've been through it, right? You've been there, you've done that, you've seen that, and you know what we're talking about, and it's great to be able to give back in that
My
way.
niece just went to boot camp. She's
Yeah.
in the Air National Guard.
Absolutely.
She just went too, so.
Yeah, no, that's awesome stuff. I'm glad we can have those things available to you to be able to work with. So.